is the set of harrow teeth that I was given by the customer. They came from his family farm in Saskatchewan, and he approached me asking if I could do something with these. His initial plan was to have these made into hori, but I told him the teeth were a bit small for that purpose, so I suggested that we do the kama, or rice knife, instead. The rice knife is a small hand sickle shaped tool that's traditionally used for cutting down vegetation, grasses, rice, that kind of thing. The way that I do mine, I serrate the blades, put a serration into them, so you can also use it for smaller woody branches as well. So the steel here is high carbon steel. I put it through a test to make sure that it was suitable for blade and tool use, and it was. I have a YouTube video up for that. And from here, after the test was done, I started making the blades themselves. So here I have the teeth being annealed in the gas forge that I use for some of my projects. Once the steel reaches non-magnetic, I put it in ashes and vermiculite to anneal and soften, removing any stresses in the steel. And then after I let it cool down fully, I get to forging. So here I have one harrow tooth in the forge, getting it up to temperature so I can start forging out the blade shape. So here, after several heats and cutting from the stock, we have the main blade shape forged out. It has the spine is on the top side of the blade, the cutting edge will be on the bottom, and a narrower tang is forged out to be inserted into the wooden handle. You can see in the next picture coming up here, I forge out the curve for the sickle. I don't bother to forge out the bevels because it's a constant fight of trying to keep the blade curved in, because every time you forge bevels on the cutting edge, it tends to push the blade away from the side of the bevels. What I prefer to do instead is to forge it to the shape that you see here and then use the belt grinder to grind down the bevel. And for these blades, I do a single bevel. Here's a shot of me working on a set of them. I did about half in one go and then did the other half afterwards. After the forging is done, when I get the grinding going, I put in my maker's mark on the back side of the blade. It's a stylized R to represent reforged ironworks. Now I've ground in the single bevel on the edge side of the blade. You can see in the top there, it's on the left-hand side, on the inside curve of the blade itself. And after this point, I haven't quite ground it all the way down to a sharpened edge. I'll leave about a millimeter or so, maybe a little bit less, on the edge of the blade. And then I'll put it through process of normalizing to make sure that there's no warpage, and then do the heat treat. The blades have now been hardened in oil quench, tempered in the oven to a dark straw, and ready to be sharpened and serrated. The blades are ready for sharpening now, so take them to the belt grinder, sharpen them down to the final cutting edge, use a sharpening stone to hone them up, and then use a rat tail file or a chainsaw file to file in the serrations so that the blade can saw. There we go. The blades themselves at this point turn out to be extremely sharp and are ready for installation into the handles. So we're here at the workbench getting ready to assemble all the pieces here. And there's a bit of work that happens off screen that I didn't take photos of, so I'll explain it here. For the handles, I'll cut a broom handle basically down into about foot-long lengths and cut a slot in one side using a table saw. So that's where the tang of the blade will go. The blades, you've seen the forging process up to now. And then the rings are ferrules. They're made out of steel, and I cut them from a pipe. And they're about, let's say about ½ inch thick or so. And what I'll do is I'll make a shoulder on the handle for the ferrule to sit on, and then install the handle and the ferrule together so that it's a nice tight fit. The blade doesn't move or wobble at all. And then the only step after this is to drill a hole through the handle and the tang for inserting a steel pin to hold it. One of the really neat things about this project is that the client asked me to customize the handles, and what he wanted on there was the name of the family farm from which the harrow teeth came from. So I was happy to oblige him, and I stamped in Veil of Hope on each handle, and you'll see it in better detail in the picture following. But here, just starting to address the fit and finish of each blade. So you can see a file is pictured there. I do that to smooth down the steel pins if I don't use rivets, and then also to clean up any epoxy from pinning the tang into the handle, and getting the handles ready for a coat of linseed oil. Okay, here's the finished product. The Veil of Hope comma made from harrow teeth from the Veil of Hope farm. It was a lot of fun making this project. You can see that the linseed oil has given the wood a gorgeous look. I love the richness and the depth of the color. I'm sure tung oil could work equally well, but linseed oil is one of my favorites. So yeah, that's the finished product. And here's just one shot of the total order. He had asked for a trowel, the heavy duty trowel that I make with Veil of Hope stamped into the Karagana handle as well. The 7 kama or rice knives in the center, and last the hori hori, which I forged from coil spring from car suspension. So yeah, those are the tools that I made for this order, and it was great fun, and I would love to do a project like this again for people who have steel from either farms or that have some sort of sentimental value to them and would like to see them repurposed into tools that'll last for generations and are usable as well. Um, the salvaging process, reclaiming old steels, that kind of thing, and turning them into elegant and useful tools is something that really drives my passion in this craft. So it was a great pleasure working on this, and the customer was a delight to work with as well. So that's it for me. This is Tim from Reforged Ironworks, and I'll see you again next project.